chamber@gmail.com. And with that, I am going to welcome our speaker, and I am going to read her bio because it's so wonderful, and I hope she doesn't mind. Our speaker today is Meg Gaffney-Cooke, and Meg is the principal landscape architect for Blue Leaf Landscape. She has a Bachelor of Science in Ornamental Horticulture and a Master's of Landscape Architecture from the University of Georgia. Her expertise includes landscape architectural design, development and project management of residential, commercial, multifamily, mixed use, government, institutional, transportation, and amenity-based projects throughout the state. She specializes in horticulture, resilience, sustainability, niche, and historical design. Meg has been a resident of Jacksonville, Florida since 2002, and always an active member of her community. She was instrumental in the founding of the Jacksonville Arboretum and Gardens, which I love, and the board chair during its opening. For her work with the Arboretum, she received the President's Volunteer Award for Community Service in 2005 and the 2009 Canopy Award for Civic Horticulture Leadership. Meg has also led numerous volunteer urban tree planting efforts as a board member of Greenscape of Jacksonville and designed and managed local community gardens. Fabulous. Meg, I'm going to let you do a quick hello, and then we're going to show a video that a pre-recorded presentation that Meg has.
Hello, everyone. It's really nice to be here, and hope you enjoy the little talk I put together, and I look forward to speaking with everyone when it wraps up.
Yep, we're going to show this video. It's pre-recorded, and Meg is here live, and we are going to have a discussion. So please, everybody, make sure you stick around. I am going to share the video. There it is. And I have to take the video, our videos off to play it. And
hi, thanks for joining me for a little food for thought. Today, I want to talk just a little bit about ideas and how ideas change things, specifically how we look at gardens and our idea of beauty in the landscape. So most of us would agree in theory that we want a garden, our home landscape, our parks, to kind of fit the words under that first column. In practice, I'll tell you that the vast majority of landscapes in this state are they require a lot of intensive work. Those of you who have a home landscape, think about how much time you spend mowing, edging, watering, mulching, weeding, all of these things that most people don't enjoy doing, but we do them anyway because we think we should or we have to. So what if we slow down? What if we reimagine what our landscapes are supposed to look like? We appreciate a more natural, a looser aesthetic. We understand nature a bit more. We begin to follow patterns of nature and really can probably find real resistance in our gardens, resilience, I mean. Let's begin by closing our eyes. I want you to imagine a favorite park or garden. Okay, take a snapshot, hold on to that. Open your eyes. Maybe you were thinking about something like this. This is a very iconic, very legible park type image. You know that it's been maintained. You know that people have been there. You have a bench, there's comfort, there's a place to sit, there's the sound of water. You know that you have a place to go get shade if you want to move to that kind of protective gazebo off in the distance. It's very appealing. These are images that we grow up with, we learn about, and they become signals to us that this is a safe space to be. In contrast, let's look at this other image. I think most of us would agree it's very beautiful, but it elicits a different emotional response. It's not some place that we see ourselves walking through. So we're going to look at history a little bit in order to understand why we look at those two images so differently. Ready? Go. As far back as 600 BC, the Assyrians were the first to document gardens. They said they wanted to elicit wonder in their population, demonstrate power, and show their control over the natural world. The Romans continued a very similar ideal in gardens. They wanted to show their wealth. They wanted to demonstrate their power and their control over nature. In the Dark Ages, the monastic gardens were following a similar pattern for different reasons. They had safety, they needed a space to meditate, and they needed to control their environment to grow food and provide that contemplative space. Jumping forward, the Italians really mastered the control of water. Natural gravitational water that was at their fingertips, they used to display wealth. They started to interject entertainment into their landscapes, and definitely demonstrating a mastery, a control over nature. Of course, power elicits a higher demonstration of power, and King Louis visited the Italian gardens and needed to one-up that situation. So we see the French Baroque come out of that that lineage of garden aesthetic. The English Romantic in the 1700s, again, was demonstrating their wealth and their status in the community by imitating paintings. The Victorians really started to give us a lot of trouble because this is when many, many people could afford to travel and bring back plants and animals from all over the world. In the 1900s, we began to loosen up in our ideas of the garden, and things were allowed to look more natural, but still the concept was to have a very controlled, kind of painterly image that required a lot of maintenance to keep that beauty. So imagine that we take all of that history of control and look at it, appreciate the importance of it to our ancestors, but we are not in a position to need to control our landscapes. In fact, it would be best for the planet if we relaxed a lot. Right now, we think of maintaining plants. If we change that, a good first step is to start imagine that we're managing a population of plants. Plants are meant to be in communities, and they support themselves very well without a lot of intervention. Landscape architects at this point in time really look at post-industrial landscapes. This is the High Line in New York. There are people researching how to connect our divided environment, especially in this country. Essentially look at gardening in terms of our place in a post-wild world. It's no longer man against nature. We really need to realize our integration as part of the biome of this planet and create gardens that reflect that understanding. So as a landscape architect, I have to tell you, it was hard for me to change the way I think about how I put combinations of plants together and why. I'm a lifetime gardener. I have a horticulture degree and a master's of landscape architecture. And still, I have to say that this very accessible book helped me put the pieces together to understand why we put communities of plants together in a different way and the power of that and how it makes sense. So if you have any interest, as if you're a gardener or interested in landscape design theory, I really recommend this book. So now I spend a lot of time thinking about how to apply the theory of plant populations and ecological design really specifically to our environment here in Florida, which is, it's so diverse and unique. There's so many opportunities. There was a rare butterfly that was thought extinct in South Florida until people realized that, or saw beauty in the coontie palm. You might be familiar with. It's a common landscape plant now, but it wasn't for a long time, and it had been decimated in the wild. But nurseries started growing it for home landscapes, and suddenly this butterfly, the Atala, I think, which was thought to be extinct, reappeared. So we can do a lot in our average home and commercial landscapes to support biodiversity and all the wonderful beauty we have here in Florida. So let's rethink what we expect, what we think is beautiful or normal, and imagine something that's better. We can do things better in the landscape in almost all areas in this state. This is an example from Missouri, but I think you understand why I've included it. We've all seen the retention ponds that exist everywhere in this state, and it's just a constant missed opportunity to give back a little bit to the environment. All right, this is the part where I challenge you to look at landscapes and gardens a little differently. If you find yourself passing an area that you think is, maybe a park or a yard that you think is messy or doesn't look right in the neighborhood, I'm going to ask you to look at it a second time and see if there isn't something of value there, or maybe see if it's just your personal filter, your lens, because we've been taught over millennia that a controlled landscape is beautiful, and anything else doesn't fit, isn't comfortable to us. So we need to make ourselves catch the patterns and rethink. This is a home near me, just beautiful, a very intentional native landscape in a front yard. I'm standing right on the curb. It's a very urban environment. And to either side, if I cross the street and take a picture to either side, these are the two homes that I see. Now, I never see people sitting out front of these houses unless it's winter, but my friend and his wife are often sitting on their front stoop in the shade. There's a nice breeze, there's always birds, enjoying this beautiful landscape. We know that the folks on either side are paying someone or spending their weekends mowing, edging, and trimming all of those plants that really probably would have a natural growth pattern that they would prefer to be pursuing. So a way to help find common ground for yourself or for someone maybe that you're trying to influence to plant in a more natural way would be to look for a common ground, something of interest. Most of us love to feed wildlife, see more wildlife in our gardens. Wildflower communities are so important to all of our flora and fauna. Need these plants, and people get excited about flowers. Very important, I think, to this kind of change in how we approach gardening and landscapes is to understand how to maintain something, because that's the really big change. So I encourage you to pick up some information on how to do that. And that wraps up what I wanted to talk to you about. I would love to know your thoughts. I've given you the perspective of a landscape architect, but everyone brings something of interest to the table. So feel free to ask me a question or the group, or tell us something interesting that you've noticed or done. Thanks so much for listening.
Excellent. That was amazing. Thank you very much for that video, Meg. Do you want to offer any comments before we go into Q&A?
No, I'm really interested to get some feedback and see what people feel like the takeaway was, or if you have any questions for me, I'd love to know.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and open it up to our Q&A and discussion. Let me see if I can pull the PowerPoint that we were sharing back up. Okay, so discussion time. Feel free, everybody, since it's a smaller group, go ahead and just unmute your microphone and ask a question. You can type something in the chat. I'll try to watch the chat, or just raise your hand if you want to be called on, and we can take some comments here. What did everybody think?
And I'm going to ask questions if nobody else does.
I'll jump in. Hey, Meg, this is Mary. Hey, that was awesome, by the way. Thank you so much. I love how you got us thinking a little bit differently today. Can you tell us, are you getting asked more by the designers that you work with, like, you know, specifically like civil engineers and stuff like that, to help them design plants for drainage and thinking a little bit differently about the natural landscape in terms of infrastructure?
Not as much as I would like, which is why I'm trying to do as much outreach as I can. I think the more people start looking differently and talking to each other, then, you know, it kind of has to come client up, you know, to us designers a lot of the times. If a client comes to us with already a set idea and budget, then usually it's hard to do a lot of wiggling in there and work in something new. But so my answer is not very much, just a few probably.
Okay, thanks.
I have had a really interesting experience doing some coastal projects in the last year or two that where they would normally have an environmentalist just do dune restoration plantings. So I've started to partner with a local ecologist and kind of design with the palette that he, you know, has already kind of worked into the project for restoration areas. And that's been different and a lot of fun.
Is that here in North Florida, like the Jacksonville beaches?
Yes, yeah. The project, the biggest one is the Serenata condominiums down that, you know, A1A bumps around down near St. Augustine. They did a multi-million-dollar new kind of an underground wall to hold their beach in place. And so I worked with them to create kind of an aesthetic, almost a garden-esque planting of their dunes, at least to start off with, you know, knowing that it will change and evolve with time.
Do you work with people on creating natural shorelines, people who live on waterways or the ocean? Or
I haven't had any requests to do shorelines at this point. The ecologist that I work with does a lot of those, and occasionally will kind of come to me for advice on, you know, if it's kind of a higher end residence or something, then I'll work with him a little bit on that. But it's interesting how his world and ours just never crossed. I even find that, you know, as a landscape designer, I reference nurseries, you know, plant growers all the time to know what's available. My friend who does the ecological work was using nurseries that grow plants in a different way for a different purpose, just for the ecological work. So I'm excited to have started this relationship with him, because I think in a lot of cases, it's just considered two different things. There's kind of the aesthetic landscapes and the restorative landscapes, and they don't come together. They don't bridge. Even the support industries are different. It's pretty amazing.
Okay. We only have 2 minutes left. We got one question in the chat, and then we'll go and we'll close up. What resources would you recommend for how to landscape more in tune with Florida nature?
The books that I had on one of those slides, there were 3 books. those are great places to start, and all of those authors will lead you to other books that can help a lot with that. Ginny Steibold in particular.
Okay, and one last question here. Hey Meg, who's the ecologist firm you work with on those dune projects?
I work with, oh goodness, I have to have a blank on something that a group that I work with all the time. Ecological design consultants. Sometimes when people put those three words together in different ways, but I will include it in a follow-up.
Okay. We'll let you think about that for a second. Well, we have 1 minute left. We're going to ask Meg to tell us out loud what her Tuesday takeaway was. But everybody, if you could type into the chat box something that you learned or something that you're going to take away with you this week for our Tuesday takeaway, that would be wonderful. And Meg, while you're thinking about it, I just want to mention that we have a great lineup of Tuesday at 2 speakers for May. I believe we're changing our structure after May to head into maybe doing more of just one a month. So you'll see more information about that once we make that a formal announcement. But for the month of May, it's special because it's Air Quality Month. So each week in May, we're going to have speakers that are focused on air quality. And next week, we have Jeff Sheffield from the TPO talking about an introduction to the TPO. And if you haven't heard of them, they're amazing. And also talking about EVs and electric vehicles here in North Florida. So with that, Meg, do you want to share your Tuesday takeaway?
So my Tuesday takeaway would be to challenge yourself to think about the landscapes you're looking at and how, if it's your landscape, how you can reduce control and let nature have a little more room to do her thing.